Okay, so let's talk about when I talk about increasing the PWin, right? A big part of it is how healthy is your pipeline to begin with. Sometimes when we think about PWin and improving a PWin, we go all the way to the end of the proposal and that stage go, what can we do now? No, go all the way to the beginning of the life cycle and say, what can we do to make sure that our pipeline is strong? And so the first thing I want to do is just make sure we're all on the same page of what's the point of a pipeline, right? So a pipeline obviously has opportunities in it. It's tracking our opportunities that go through. We're not trying to track every opportunity that's on PWin or in a Navy forecast. We're trying to find the ones that fit us and put it in. But pipelines, the point of a pipeline is to help you, obviously, as a business developer, follow that opportunity along and do stuff with it. But think about who else uses the pipeline. Leaders of your company use it, your financial people, CFO, whoever, they use that for financial planning. Do we want to move into a new office? Are we going to hire a bunch of people? Whatever the decisions they're making. You have writers and graphic folks. If they see opportunities that are coming through, then they'll have a heads up on this need for their services for them to be able to write proposals, or graphic people might look in and go, oh, you're going after an opportunity in this space. Okay, let me start really early beginning to think about what's coming down instead of at the last minute, I need a graphic by 5 o'clock today, right? So if you have a good pipeline and it's a reliable pipeline, meaning what's in it will get to the end, to the proposal writing stage. If it's reliable, then these people can begin to make decisions early on about it, including people like service delivery, the folks who are going to have to execute on that contract. They can start getting their heads wrapped around the opportunities you have coming through a pipeline, and how are they going to deliver on those promises that you're putting into the proposal or you're talking to the customer when you're doing solutioning. And the last one is talent acquisition, right? You have HR and recruiting who need to spend weeks, months, sometimes finding some of the best people to work on your contract. Well, they need a heads up. But what they need, again, is reliability. They need to be able to look in the pipeline and say, okay, I see an opportunity. It's past pursue and it's coming forward. We rarely have something this far that gets abandoned, right? So I can count on it and I can start doing talent acquisition activities that I do without worrying about that effort going to naught for it being pushed away. So if you understand the point of the sales pipeline, do me a favor, just put pipeline value into the chat. Let me know you're tracking on that. Pipeline value. And I'm going to move on to talking about the ideal pipeline. I describe it in 3 ways. When you look at a pipeline and you're trying to fill it with the right opportunities, there's 3 ways you can look at the opportunities to decide if it's being filled to its fullest. And I'll say what they are and then I'll expand on it. The first way is you can look at the dollar value. Do we have enough money, dollar value, contract value in that pipeline? The second way you can look at it, time focused. Do we have enough opportunities in there to cover what is coming down the pike in the next 3 to 6 months, coming down in the next year, coming down in the next 2 to 5 years, right? So looking out over the next 5 years, do we have opportunities at different stages? That's the second way. And the third way is role-based. There's 3 paths to federal revenue: prime contracting, subbing under a small, and subbing under a large. Are we going down those 3 paths? Does our pipeline have something in each one of those? And so let me expand a little bit on these. And actually, I'll start with the role, since I pretty much already said it. When you think about the role you're playing in an opportunity, you're either a sub or you're a prime. That's all you are, right? That's all I am. But there's 3 roles that you can have. You can be a sub under a large business, you can be a sub under a small business, and you can be a prime contractor. And what I say is, if you're doing, let's say, 2 or 3 million already, then you should begin to look at having opportunities in your pipeline that cover down on all 3 of those paths. So that's one thing you should look at, right? Is to see if your pipeline has it. Let me just show this one graphic here. So this is what I'm talking about. In your pipeline, you should make sure, and I'm not going too far into this, and if you want the graphic, just let me know and I'll send it to you. But you want to make sure you have opportunities that are ones where you are the subcontractor under a small business, ones where you are a prime contractor with an agency, and ones where you are a subcontractor under a large. When you do that, you've got a well-balanced pipeline. The 2 other ways that I talked about are dollar value. And so in this particular case, when you think about your goals that are out there, right? I have a $1 million or $5 million goal for 2023. And then over the next 5 years, I want to reach $25 million in revenue, something like that, right? So each year I'm breaking it down. Well, so you want to look at your pipeline and say, does the total contract value of the opportunities in my pipeline, does it lead to us being able to get all of this? And I'll show you a graphic about that in a minute as we go through the training. The second thing is the number of opportunities that you're going to be proposing on. And so an example is if you look at the 25% win rate. If you submit 4 proposals, you're going to win 1. And so if I'm trying to make 1 million, I can't submit a single $4 million opportunity and consider that 25%. I have to submit 4 opportunities that add up to at least $1 million each, right? And then you can vary that in different ways, but you want to make sure you're giving yourself at least 1 out of 4 chances of winning if you have a slam dunk opportunity in there. And so that's just proposals. Are we submitting enough proposals? Do we have enough opportunities at the proposal phase? And again, I'll show that phase in a minute. And then you can do the same thing on dollar value. You just look at all the stages of your sales life cycle. Say you're in unqualified, qualified, pursue, bid, and proposal, right? These 5 stages. You want to have enough contract value in each stage that you can hit your overall goal at the end. And again, I'll show you a graphic in a second. But each stage, you want to look at that and say, what is that number? And the percentage of total contract value at each stage is different. And so you want to know these things. I've done training about how you can do it. So here, I'm just putting it into your head that, are you looking at contract value per stage? And then the last one is time focus. I mentioned this already, right? But you can think about this year for 2023 over the next 3 to 6 months, or the fiscal year, right? We're almost done with the second quarter. So there's 6-7 months left in the year, the government's year, right? So that would be one way of looking at your pipeline. Do we have enough opportunities in there that we're responding to a sufficient amount? Next year's coming out, fiscal year 2024, and then so on and so on. Are we looking farther out at opportunities that are in our target agency and that are slam dunk opportunities? One of the things you got to be careful for is don't spend a lot of time trying to look 3 to 5 years out. Hey, I'm doing all this research. Yeah, that's great, but 80% of your time should be on the next 6 months, right? Yes, you should be tracking on opportunities that are dropping in 4 or 5 years, but you shouldn't be spending a lot of time on that. And so, as you think about this, one of the goals that I give people is you should be writing 4 proposals a month, and these 4 proposals are spread out over time. But if they follow those 3 roles, 1 prime, 1 sub, or 3 subs under large or prime, doesn't matter. If you follow that, you'll be able to hit these kind of numbers. So anyways, when you look at your pipeline, you're trying to decide, do we have an ideal amount in my pipeline? Then this is what you want to do. You want to look at it from the dollar value standpoint. You want to look at it from the time focused standpoint, and you want to look at it from the role based, the prime or sub based position. So if you look at those 3 and you analyze your pipeline to make sure there's good opportunities in there, then you can see predictable results at the end because you're doing the right things at this point. It increases your PWin. Do me a favor, put ideal pipeline into the chat if you understand that part of getting a good PWin or increasing your PWin is having a strong pipeline, an ideal pipeline. So put that ideal pipeline into the chat. And I want to share another graph here. So I talked about, opportunities that you have and how many you should have in there. Here's a graphic I used, and there's a whole nother training. And if we're lucky, Gus, you'll find it and throw it in there for us. But in this training, there's what I talk about, how you can build up your pipeline going forward, right? And so right here, and I described this a little bit before, but think about over here on the right-hand side for just 1 second of these arrows. I want 5 million in new revenue, right? That's my goal for 2023. And so as I back up from that, I realize that my total contract value needs to be 25 million. And the reason I say that is I'm just using, professional services, IT services typically have a 5-year contract. So if I want to get a single year $5 million bump, then I need to win $25 million in contract value spread over 5 years. Hopefully that makes sense there. And so as I'm coming back though, now I'm in the proposal value. And right here it says 4 times the total contract value. What I'm saying right here, when I say 4 times the total contract value, is that I expect to win 25% of my proposal value, right? Your number could be higher, but 25% is great too, by the way. But if you submit, if you have a 25% win rate, then you submit $100 million in proposal value to be able to get 25 million. And it's the same thing going back, right? I just went back one stage further in the pipeline stages, where I just said I'm winning 25% of whatever hits bid. That's the stage before the RFP even drops. That number should actually be higher, right? My previous company, that was at least 50% that it was moving forward. So, that's what you get when you put in a slam dunk opportunities that are really good for what you have. But if you notice this first box, what I'm trying to share here is that this chances of moving an opportunity from one stage to the next. And so if I have an opportunity and it's in a qualified state, and what that means is that it's our core competency or target agency, pretty much, right? Now I'm going to now that it's qualified as a good opportunity, I'm going to start doing my homework, right? Is the budgeting really there? Will the program office talk to us? Do they love the incumbent? Whatever it is. But when I look at that, I'm going to say whatever I have in qualified has a 33% chance of moving forward. What that means is 1 out of 3 opportunities in qualified, I'm going to do some homework on and get rid of 2 out of 3 of them. And only 1 will move forward to pursue. And so that one opportunity has now moved from qualified to pursue. And what I say with the 50% in pursue is that 1 out of 2 will move forward. And I don't want to get too far into this thing because there's a whole nother training. But what I wanted to point out with this is that when you have a strong pipeline, the reason it can move forward is because you're asking the right questions. And if you truly are losing 2 out of 3 qualified opportunities as they move forward in the stage, you abandon them and you say, we're not going after it, then that means you're actually looking at it and you're actually doing what's needed to get a strong PWin out there. You're really analyzing your opportunities to decide, is that not a win? It is a win for us. And what you want is by the time you're moving into that pursue stage, when you really start to do capture, 6, 12 months before an opportunity, just loose numbers there, 6 to 12 months before an opportunity. If you're doing capture, you can start digging into those opportunities with the customer. You can begin to gather a lot more information. You're shaping that opportunity with them, and you're doing activities that are in the winning proposal score that I described. By doing this, you'll increase your your PWin. So let me flip over to my slide, and I might share this one too. I'm going to share my screen here really quick. I usually don't share slides, but I always have slides in the notes to guide me. Okay, so I'm going to be talking on this. Feel free to read it if you want, but I wanted to use this as a guide for me about increasing your PWin, right? So one of the things that I don't like about PWins is that they're dangerous to sales success because people just guess. There's no calculation on the PWin. Somebody says, what's the PWin? 80%. Really, what a PWin is a probability of winning. So if we were literal to that term, probability of winning, then our probability of winning will be based on the number of qualified bids submitted to the government by our competitors and us. So if there's 10 bids, then the highest we can be is 10% PWin, right? The other reason I don't like it, especially, is the second bullet. It's not helpful to leadership or capture if there's no structure or strong criteria around it, saying, how did you come up with the PWin? Are the PWins do you come up with the PWin the same way for each person throughout the company? And so I get that the term PWin is just here and it's stuck, but I would really like you to think about winning proposal score. Because if you follow what I call a winning proposal score, and I'll break it down a little bit in a minute, but if you follow a winning proposal score, these activities will lead to old school PWin numbers going up. It's impossible for the PWin not to increase. What a winning proposal score, and I coined this term, a winning proposal score, as a way to tie it to how I teach people capture. Here's exactly what you do and how you do it to increase the PWin or increase your winning proposal scores through activity, through tasks. And so there's some stuff in here. I talk about how it's a 100-point scale, the winning proposal scale. So you should have 100 points and you're trying to get to that. At some point, you're never going to really be able to get to 100 points, and that's okay, as long as you just keep getting higher and higher. But it's calculated, the score is calculated based off of the numbers of these categories you see on the right. And I'll talk about them each in a second, but I want to give you an example of what I mean by the score in any one of them. And so here's one with past performance where I'm using it as an example. If you have no experience with tasks or the agency, then you get 0 points. So for past performance in a winning proposal score, right, that category, you would get 0 points. If you have some experience with some task areas anywhere out there, then you get 3 points. It's like, okay, you're in the game. It's kind of like you're anteing into a poker game. If you have solid experience with some of the task areas, if there's 7 task areas and 4 of them, you've got really strong experience in other customers, then you can give yourself 6 points because you can tell that story. It's good. And then moving to the 9 points, if you have solid experience with most task areas, so I said 7 task areas, now we're looking at 6 or 7 of them, you got solid experience, not kind of experience, but really good experience tied to each one at whatever customer. I don't care where the customer is at the moment. Here, we're just talking about your experience. Then that's good. You get 9 points now based on the past performance. Now, as you move forward, this gets way more important for the determination the government makes when they have the evaluation criteria. But if you have one exact in the agency and 2 relatable experiences, then you get 12 points. What that means is if you have an experience, if FAA is the customer and you have an exact, basically duplicate of the task area experience within FAA, then you give yourself 12 points. And you can cover down with 2 other past performances on basically the opportunity tasks, right? Or the opportunity requirements. If you can cover down on that, you give you 12 points. And you max out the points, get 12 points. If you have 3 exact past performances within any one of the federal agencies and with this agency. If you could sit there and say, look, Department of Navy, right? We did it in NAVSUP, we did it in NAVFAC, and now we're trying to get into NAVWAR or something. If you can bring just full past performances, you give yourself 15 points. As you move forward, one thing to keep in mind about increasing your PWin through increasing your proposal scores, say you don't have all 3 as the prime. Well, part of your capture is to go in and ask the government to let you use one of your subcontractors' past performances when the eval criteria comes out. If you can get them to put that into the RFP when it drops, now you only have 2, but your teaming partner has a 3rd. You can give yourself 15 points by finding the right teaming partner and building up that past performance. And so hopefully that made sense as it moved forward there. If it did, put WPS into the chat so I know that you're tracking on what I'm trying to show. And then over on the right-hand side, I just wanted to show you the categories. When you focus on these categories, you will obviously strengthen your winning proposal score, but you will be able to increase the PWin. So agency understanding, I got 4 minutes. I want to share this. Agency understanding, this is completely separate than the program office or the requirement. It's, do you have a high level understanding of what the Navy does or what FAA does, right? Great. And then below that, maybe you're doing an opportunity with, if I say agency understanding, let's call that NAVWAR over in the Navy. So Naval Information Warfare Systems Command. NAVWAR, that's an agency understanding. I understand what they're trying to do. And then coming down, customer understanding is understanding who's the customer for this requirement. And in my scenario, let's say it's PEO Digital, who works, closely tied under with NAVWAR. So PEO Digital is the program office, that they're the customer. And how well do I understand them? And I have this same 6-step breakdown for each one of these. First, I want to understand the agency's mission. What are they trying to do? And then the customer's mission. And so I can align them together. And then as I come down further into the opportunity in the PWS, do I understand the requirements that's coming out from the government? And in there, it's not just requirements understanding, but what I break down, and you can go look at the training, but I say, how well are you having conversations with the program office, right? It's not enough for you to just read some document. Are you having conversations? Are you influencing the requirements? Is the customer shaping requirements around the discussions you guys are having? If they are, then you max out those requirement understandings. That's capture, by the way. Customer understanding, requirements understanding, those 2 are big meat of the 80% of capture right there. Is really understanding the customer and the requirements by having discussions with the government. All right, and then core competency alignment. This is a good one for me. How closely do the requirements in this opportunity align to what you've determined as your company's core competency? If you say your company's core competency is data security, or well, let's leave it at data security. That's cool. If you start going into a broader cybersecurity, it's not as aligned, but it's still security and cybersecurity. But if you start going into IT services and software development, and you start going into professional services, right? You see what I'm saying? You're going farther and farther away from a core competency alignment. And you can do that. That's your choice. But you don't get as high of a PWin or a WPS or winning proposal score because you're not aligning to what you're best at. Your core competencies are what you're best at. And that's why we have it. I already talked about past performance. Competition is this: how well do you understand the competition? How well do you understand the pricing that's needed and pricing to win? Hope people who talk about that write books. Staffing, right? Are you thinking about what's needed for FTE counts? Are you thinking about key personnel? Are you already identifying the people who will take the lead on here? Maybe you got people on current projects that you move over, right? So thinking about that. And then teaming partners is the other one that goes huge into how well are you going to win this is, do you have the right team, like I said, who can strengthen your winning proposal score, increase your PWin, and strengthen your chance of winning the opportunity? Okay, so in this training, I shared what the purpose of a pipeline is, what an ideal pipeline looks like, and then how many opportunities should be in your pipeline, or how you should look at those opportunities. The one task I want you to go do is determine if your pipeline has at least one opportunity from each of those three roles I mentioned: sub under a small, prime, sub under a large, right? Look at your pipeline and determine if it has that. It's okay if it doesn't, but at least it gives you action items to say, let me fill it back in. Do me a favor, let us know if you found the training valuable. If you did, put thanks into the chat. If you'd like to be part of our BD Accelerator workshop that starts on Monday, go ahead and send me a message in LinkedIn. This workshop is for companies that are doing about $1 million or $2 million in revenue and want help going to the next level. Remember, government contracting, it is not a secret. It's just a process. I'll see you in the next training.